Remote peak hotel has grown substantially over the past few years, so much so that management needs to hire a systems administrator for ISM. Enter Ren Berry. Though Ren is new to remote peak hotel, she's no stranger to ISM, with several years of experience under her belt. We'll be following Ren as she implements advanced administrative concepts and functions in ISM. As the system administrator for a hotel, Ren uses ISM to do the following: design new concepts to address business needs, manage integrations, configure advanced settings, manage licensing issues, create new configuration items, and participate in system upgrades. For the past few days, Ren has been helping roll out Service Manager for a new remote peak hotel in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Today, Ren is importing hotel employee data into ISM from Microsoft Active Directory by connecting to the hotel's LDAP server. While doing this, Ren also plans to set up an external authorization login using LDAP and schedule routine LDAP synchronizations. From the configuration console, Ren selects LDAP settings under Integration Tools. With the workspace opened, she selects Add New and is presented with the Connect to Directory page. From here, Ren needs to input and test the directory server address and access credentials. After filling out the necessary information, Ren tests the connection. The connection is successful. To continue, Ren clicks Next. On the Select Directory Info to Sync page, Ren needs to define her root node that dictates where the data will be pulled from. She opens the root DSE folder and navigates to and selects her desired node. Once selected, Ren clicks Add Selected Node as Root. The node is now added. Before clicking Next, she also selects Select Sample Entry, which will allow her to preview records prior to importing user data from Active Directory. On the page, Ren needs to define the field mappings and the unique identifier. By default, the unique identifier is email. Though email generally works well as a unique identifier, Ren chooses Login ID. Next up, Ren needs to define which fields will be referenced in the employee data pool. During this portion, Ren calls up the hotel's server admin in order to identify the correct LDAP field names that correspond with the Connect field names she wants to include in the data import. Though she wants to use all the default contact fields that populate once the page is open, Ren wants to add a few additional fields. To do so, she clicks the green plus sign. After defining her new fields, Ren does a quick review of which fields have a default value assigned. Assigning a default value for a field will result in the system automatically assigning whatever value you have selected for that field. For example, for the team field, Ren has Service Desk assigned as the default value. This will assign every employee collected in the data import to the Service Desk team. This option is typically selected when an LDAP field does not exist relative to a selected ISM field. Next, Ren needs to define the contact roles. Defining this field determines what role will be automatically assigned to the users that are imported into the system. Ren wants all remote peak hotel employees to have the self-service user role, so she leaves it as is. The next configuration options are the advanced settings. There are two options Ren is concerned with here. The first is the Add LDAP login in server to imported accounts. This option automatically creates the external authentication during the LDAP sync. The second option, disable users who have been disabled in the LDAP compliant directory using the value of the fields, does just that. If a user gets deleted from the Active Directory, that same user will be put in a terminated status in ISM. Ren leaves both options activated. Before continuing on, Ren wants to preview the data. Clicking Preview at the bottom of the page, the Preview Data window opens up. Here, Ren can see a sample of the users that will be imported into the system. By clicking on a username, she can also verify which data will be imported. Satisfied with what she sees in the preview, Ren clicks Next. On the Exclude Items page, Ren doesn't need to exclude anything, so she clicks Next. To finish LDAP sync, Ren first clicks Synchronize Now. After the wizard finishes syncing, Ren clicks Save. Wanting to check to make sure the import was successful, Ren navigates to the Service Desk console, where she has the Employee workspace opened. After refreshing the page, Ren can see that the new employees have been added. Wren then opens the employee record of Bob Dole and clicks to see if the correct data was imported. The import was successful. Now that Wren has created her LDAP, she wants to set up a schedule where the LDAP automatically syncs data between the Active Directory and ISM every night. First, Wren needs to publish the out-of-the-box LDAP sync workflow. Opening the Business Objects workspace in the Configuration console, Wren searches for the Schedule Entry business object and selects it. Next, she opens the Workflows tabs and selects the LDAP sync workflow. She then selects the Publish icon under Actions. The workflow turns green, indicating the workflow is published. The final action Wren needs to take is to set the schedule for her LDAP sync. Clicking on the Search icon in the Settings menu, Wren searches for and opens the Scheduled Jobs workspace. Next, Wren searches for and opens the LDAP sync in the Scheduled Jobs list. She is presented with the schedule for the LDAP sync. Here, Wren can adjust the schedule's time to perform the LDAP sync, how often, and several other configuration options, including start and end date. Satisfied with the current schedule settings, Wren's LDAP sync is set and ready to go.
A role governs application access to various workspaces, business objects, and fields. It's what the user can see. Permissions allow a user to add, view, edit, or delete fields in a business object. It's what the user can do. Roles give the administrator the ability to constrain viewing of records in workspaces based on certain criteria. Users will only see what is relevant to their job, based on their assigned role. For example, you can create permissions for the Service Desk Analyst to only see incidents assigned to that team. This provides your organization with security and confidentiality. If a request is submitted to HR to terminate an employee, you can restrict the viewing of that request to only users within an HR role. You simply determine whether you want the user to be able to add, view, edit, or delete items within a business object. In addition to business objects, roles also determine a user's permission to create, edit, or delete items such as searches, dashboards, and quick actions. Every user in the system must have at least one role. There are default roles already configured in the system. You can assign users to these roles or use them as a starting point to customize your own. That's it. You now know what roles and permissions are within Ivanti Neurons for ITSM. In the next part of the course, we'll look at how to manage and configure roles to work for you in your environment. Ivanti Neurons for ITSM uses roles to govern rights and views within the system. To log into Ivanti Neurons for ITSM, a user must have at least one role in the system, although users can hold multiple roles. So, when you log in the first time, you are prompted to select from a list of roles based on the roles to which you are assigned. If you have previously logged into the system, when you log in the next time, the system automatically opens into the role you were using when you last logged out. If you click the Account drop-down, you see a few of the roles that you can use in the product. If you are assigned to many roles, use the arrow at the bottom of the list to expand it. On this home page for the administrator role, you'll notice these top-level tabs: Home, Incident, Service Request, Problem, and so on. There is also a default dashboard on your home page. When you change the active role, those views may change. Matt, an administrator for Remote Peak Hotel, has just hired a new assistant administrator. He needs to demonstrate the differences between the functionality of their respective roles in Ivanti Neurons for ITSM. To demonstrate, Matt will change the role from Administrator to Service Desk Analyst to view the differences between the two roles. Now, in the Service Desk Analyst role, you see some of the top-level tabs have changed from what they were before when using the Administrator role. Also note that the default dashboard has changed. So, roles govern what you can see and what areas you can access in the application. They'll also govern what rights you have. As a Service Desk Analyst, if you click on Incident, you're seeing your task list and other data that you need to see for your job. Each of these can be customized based on your role. When you create a new record, the form can be different based on the role that's logged in. What you see when you double-click to edit a record can be different as well. Some customers prefer to let the service desk analyst fill in the incident, but if somebody is logged in with, say, a Tier 2 role, then they can make some of these fields read-only so they can't be changed. These are just some of the things that you can do with the roles in the product. So, you're going to have a username and password to log in, and then you'll have the role you can use to get access into specific areas. Matt wants to give his new assistant upgraded capabilities in the system than those of a service desk analyst, so he needs to create a new role just for his assistant. He wants the role to have many of the same characteristics of the service desk analyst, so he will create the new role by cloning. To do that, he'll switch back to the administrator role. He can now see the wrench icon that launches the settings or configuration console. This is where you can clone a role and configure other role and permissions settings. To do that, under Configure, locate Users and Permissions, then click Roles and Permissions from the submenu. Next, locate the Service Desk Analyst role and click Clone. Give the role a new name, Associate Admin, and click OK. Now, Matt needs to customize the new role. Click the Associate Admin role to open it. You can see the role has a name and display name populated. If you want to change the display name, you can do so here. Check Overwrite Default Branding Options with the options listed below. Now you can change selections in the Branding Options section. These are the branding options you can change. At the very least, you'll want to have a Logout button, and if you want users to have the ability to switch between roles, you'll have a Change Role button. Even though many users don't have multiple roles, it doesn't hurt to have it selected for those who do. You can add the Change Password button here, but because most customers are using Active Directory and single sign-on, this isn't normally checked. There is also an area for top and bottom links. This would put a link up near the logo or down in the left footer area where your users can click to get to another location. Click the plus sign to add a Google link here, so you can see where it shows up. Enter the full URL and check to open it in a new window. You can also check to pass your single sign-on information into that link. If you want to have one show up in the bottom, give it a title, enter the full URL, and you have the same specifications you can make. Below that, you can see the help links. You can see the admin help, user help, and self-service help. Depending on the role you're logged in with, you'll have access to different help files under the help icon in the top right corner. For example, if you're a service desk analyst, you might want to see user help, where a customer might need the self-service help. Administrators would probably want all options. So, we can decide which help files an associate admin will have access to. Let's use user help for now. The second tab across, top-level tabs, are for the tabs running along the top of the page. If you hadn't cloned this role and were simply creating a new role, you would need to have at least one top-level tab before the system would allow you to save the role. The tab title is the title you see displayed on the tab. If there isn't enough room for all the visible tabs, they will appear under the More menu. Since you cloned this role, if you want to have something different, you can change it. So, in this example, let's say you want to remove the colors and social board. Simply click the red X and delete it for this role. Each of these has different attributes, whether it's available, whether it's visible, whether the user can close the tab. You may also want to rearrange the order of the tabs. To the left of the tab title, you'll see a button icon that looks like a faint set of lines. Click and drag it to the new location where you want it to appear. Before you leave that tab, remember to click Save to retain your changes and refresh your browser. The next tab is Licensing Information. You would modify settings here if applicable to the role. Similar to top-level tabs, we have Object Permissions. This tab allows you to set specific permissions for business objects. Object permissions are customizable to add, view, edit, and delete options for business objects. It also has lifecycle and access options. On the System Permissions tab, you can give permission to the associate admin to create quick actions for themselves, to share with everyone, or delete. If you check the Edit checkbox, it adds it under Allow Publishing, and in the right field drop-down, you will choose the roles that can create, edit, and share quick actions. Let's say I'm an associate admin and I want to allow other associate admins and service desk analysts to create, edit, and share quick actions. You can do the same with searches and dashboards. And down under Allow Publishing, you also have reports. You can learn more about these in the courses for quick actions, searches, and dashboards. The final tab we want to look at is the permissions to grant roles. On the left, you see a list of various roles. For our associate admin role, if you want the associate admin to be able to place other users in one of these roles, you'll want to check those. This allows the associate admin to put a customer into one of those roles. This would be helpful if you need to help a customer regain access to their account. Save your changes, then close the configuration window. Navigate to Home and refresh your browser settings. Now we'll navigate to an employee account and make them a member of that new associate admin role you just created. To do this, select Employee from the More menu. Locate the user and open the employee record. Click Roles, and then the Link button. This will show roles they haven't been linked to yet. Scroll down to locate the associate admin role to highlight it, then click Select. Click Save to save your changes and exit the employee record. Since this was a structural change, you need to refresh the browser again. Now, when you come back to the user account, you'll see Associate Admin populated in the list of roles you can log in with. Let's change to the Associate Admin role. Remember, it acquired a lot of the characteristics of the Service Desk Analyst because we cloned that role. Now you can see those top and bottom links we created that take you to Google. You can see the rearrangement of the top-level tabs that we configured. We gave the role a logout button and made changes to the Help menu. So, Matt has now cloned and customized the new role and linked a user to that role. He now needs to give the associate admin role to 2 other people who will be helping him in new hotels the company has just bought. He can also now locate other users for this particular role. Navigating back to the administrator role, click the wrench to open the configuration console, then navigate to Users and Permissions and the Roles and Permissions submenu. Locate the associate admin role. You can see a link to find users next to it. If you click that, it's another way to approach adding users to a role. If the user record exists in the system, it's preferable to link it this way. So, from this window, Matt will click Link and select the 2 other user records from the list that appears, then click Select. These are now other members of the associate admin role. When they're logged in, they can select that role if they want to. Remember to save these changes. You've seen several settings that we could change based on roles. Let's view a few more. If you open the Incident tab, you can see the Incident workspace. On the Incident workspace, you can customize default searches, customize list views, customize which fields are visible or rearrange them, and change the form appearance. The record layout consists of the list view on top and a preview form below, a form for creating a new record, and a form for editing a record. All of those together create a layout, and the layout is what gets assigned to the role. To make these modifications, go to the Configuration Settings, and then Page Layouts. Locate the Associate Admin role and then, in the right pane, choose any page layout, Advanced Options. You'll see it shows you which layout is being used. So, if you want to change something, this is how you identify which layout to change for that role. You can learn more about that in the Business Objects course.